Good morning, everybody. This is Pete Najarian, and this is The Take on a Thirsty Thursday. Wow, we got to love what we're seeing in the markets over the last couple of days, at least yesterday and today. Now, yesterday, bell to bell, really strong performance out of the market, holding on to the gains, not hardly giving up anything throughout the session. And it was pretty big. I mean, you looked across the major indices, you look at the S&P was up about 2.25, really strong. Chipotle and Twitter and energy all really contributing to the S&P 500 and that nice move to the upside. The Dow, some of your typical names, Microsoft and Apple, throwing a little bit McDonald's in there as well, leading the Dow up over 2% as well. But the NASDAQ once again outpacing. And what was really leading the NASDAQ? We had the semiconductors absolutely were on fire. Names like AMD, NXPI, Intel, NVIDIA, all these kind of names really screaming to the upside yesterday. I'm going to hit on this in a second, but NVIDIA was one of those names that actually we highlighted yesterday on here for some unusual activity. You're going to like what I have to tell you about that today. Now, PayPal, Facebook, Starbucks, a lot of names really powering the market's move yesterday and specifically into the NASDAQ itself, because we know how much is technology, biotech, semiconductors, all the rest of that. Well, semiconductor index really screaming to the upside yesterday. And you look across, we have seen nothing but paper. I mentioned on Monday of this week, we talked about Intel. We talked about some of these names that were hitting. Marvell. Micron's been hitting very consistently, including today in extremely short term. We're looking at expirations in some of these that are this week, that are tomorrow. But that earlier ones in the week on Monday, when we talked about Intel and Marvell, they actually bought a little bit of time. So there is a little bit more time there. We're talking June and August and those kind of names, but most everything we are seeing continues to be expiring the 24th, May 1st, or even extending a little bit further than that. But again, extremely short term. Now, volatility continues to hold on. Whether we're up a lot or up a little or down, volatility has been very sticky right around in this range. As a matter of fact, when I was looking at it, when we started April, we were trading right around 51, a little bit less than 51 on the 1st of April. We hit lows on the 13th of about 37. Since that time, or within that time, we have seen, for the most part, about a 40 to a 44 VIX. We're looking at 42 yesterday, so that gives you a little bit of a sense. We'll talk about today in just a moment. But again, I just wanted to highlight to you that the energy names really were the biggest, and that was the powering factor really moving the markets to the upside. And I'm not just talking about the big names, I'm talking about the small names as well, really powering with the price of oil that's been moving just all over the place. You want volatility, just take a look at what's been going on in oil from those negative numbers last week with the May, and then as that expired and going into June, seeing these numbers just explode to the upside. And we've got a lot more to talk about today about that. Yesterday, we did talk about NVIDIA. We did talk about the 290 calls that expire again tomorrow, as we were talking about. Those were trading when the stock was trading 283. That's when we saw the big buying coming in there. Today, that stock's now trading 291 as I'm doing this taping. So gives you a little bit of an idea of how fast things can work and are working in some of these names. And despite the fact that that was a very short term, we're talking about that was yesterday, Wednesday, these expire Friday. Those have already moved significantly. And we always talk about discipline. Discipline dictates action. You've got to make some moves, and you got to make some decisions on what some of those targets are for those. And that's something we talk about all the time, is buying good or bad. You have to have a target price of an exit strategy, or at least a trimming strategy. And that's something that we talk about here at Market Rebellion all the time. Now, overnight, the one surprise that really, I think, gave the markets a nice lift really was Sheldon Adelson talking about Las Vegas Sands, and makes some really good points that we really hadn't heard from very many folks. But what we're dealing with here now is something that other parts of the world certainly see at a much higher rate than we do here in the United States. That being said, you look over to China, you see the pandemic. We all know what's been going on. And he was talking about some of the bullish side of what he sees in the future for Macau. And does that make total sense for Las Vegas? No, but we all know the exposure levels of Las Vegas Sands and of Wynn. And just to give you a little reflection of what exactly that means today, Las Vegas Sands, it's up over 12%. It's pulling Wynn along with it. So you look at the gaming industry, and especially the biggies, those two specific names, really moving to the upside in a huge way. Now, we had those jobless claims numbers come out. Again, really, really sorry to say that they are above 4 million, above 4.4 million actually, and that's disturbing. It's now over 26 million have filed for unemployment over the last 5 weeks. That's definitely a concern, and that's something that obviously we know how much is going on with stimulus packages and all the rest of that, but that's another sad part of the markets as well. And heart goes out to all those folks that have been unemployed, have been furloughed, have been all the other different factors going into people not being able to go to work any longer because of what's been going on and the suffering that's going on there. And that has usually been pushing the markets. But we talk about flattening the curve all the time. Talk about flattening the curve when we were talking about the coronavirus. Well, flattening the curve of these numbers, they have been coming down. These numbers have been coming down for the filings for the unemployment. So if there is a bright light, that's what we're seeing is a little less. And because of that, and actually, they actually revised last week's as well, down a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. So we talk about energy and the powering of energy yesterday. Well, again, today, markets are up right now. They've just started really moving, accelerating to the upside. We're up about 1.5% right now in the Dow, 350 points. You look at the leaders right now, it's Exxon, it's Chevron. Those are the names that are really powering the markets right now. But you also have Dow Chemical, you've got Boeing, you've got Caterpillar, so we've got materials. We also have a lot of movement in healthcare. Healthcare has been very, very strong of late, gotten some nice boosts. As a matter of fact, yesterday, late in the day, a lot of people talking about Gilead and the move about a week ago. It was a week ago Thursday in the evening. Gilead came out with some of the potential of what they've been working on to try to work on this coronavirus, and that really did power the markets when you went into the Friday trade. Well, Gilead last night, no words coming from Gilead, but maybe a louder sound than ever, because what we were seeing was huge call buying very end of the day in Gilead, going all the way out to June. The June 110 calls aggressively being bought. These were fairly inexpensive, relatively speaking, but they're buying time and they're buying upside. So that was something that really did stand out, I thought, yesterday, late in the day, late in the session. Today, what are we seeing? An interesting trade as well. So here's today's unusual. All that other stuff was from days ago, either Wednesday or Thursday. Today, Microsoft, the June 230s. And the reason I had to look at this twice is stock's trading about 174 3/4 is where it's been trading. 230 strike. So they're going out to June, so they're buying a little bit more time than we've been seeing. This isn't in April. This isn't in May. They're going out to June, regular expiration cycle, and they're going all the way up to the 230s. That's a really interesting trade. Not as expensive. So we're talking about a 35-cent option, give or take. But really interesting to see somebody doing that type of a trade, going that far out in time and up in terms of the strike. Because 230, that would be you could start seeing that move a lot faster than before it gets to that level, especially given the time. But it just really stood out for me, and that was pretty unusual. So wanted to point that out as the unusual. So we always have a little fun here. We haven't had as much fun lately. So what is today, and why am I so excited about today? NFL draft. Absolutely exciting. You know why? Because we don't have to watch some taped old thing. We don't have to watch the 1984 this or the 1996 that or all that. This is actually something that we're going to be able to watch. Now, it's not going to be normal. It looks like Roger Goodell's going to be in his basement. It looks like players all around the country that are the most likely that are going to get drafted in the at least first round will be very prepared and all the rest of that. So thought I'd have a little bit of fun with you. So I'm looking. Top 5 picks of the NFL draft, and there are, not everybody is in agreement on this, but I just kind of went through a lot of what a lot of people's work has done. Mel Kiper's been a guy that I've been following for many, many years. He followed me way back in the day in the late 80s, but Mel Kiper's been very accurate over the years, and in particular, guys, looking at the first, 3, 4, 5 picks. So I wanted to tell you, it looks like Joe Burrow, quarterback from LSU, is going to go to the Cincinnati Bengals. Pretty much a given there. Chase Young, big stud defensive end out of Ohio State. This guy's an absolute freak show edge rusher. Looks like he's going to go to the Washington Redskins and maybe play for our good friend Ron Rivera, old Cal Bear out there, and former coach of, obviously, Carolina Panthers. Jeff Okudah, unbelievable talent. This kid is a total stud cornerback out of Ohio State. Looks like Detroit might be eyeing him up. Now, the Giants. The Giants are in a pretty interesting position. They're looking for offensive linemen. They're always looking for a little bit of everything. They've been really kind of moving around, but looks like offensive linemen. Which one they take? Will they take the big gentleman who was an absolute freak show at the combines from Iowa? Are they going to take him, or are they going to go with Wills out of Alabama? That's going to be a big change. One of those two guys, I think, will be the offensive lineman. It's first taken, one of those two. And I think then that's what the Giants are going to pick. Now, Tua Tagovailoa. This should be a lot of fun, man. This should be a lot of fun if he goes to Miami. Now, has his knee recovered and all the rest of that? You know, who really knows how great a shape he's in terms of all of that and the recovery, and that's such a difficult thing. But he sure did look great when they showed a few clips of what his pro day looked like not too terribly long ago when they were doing it and they had to be sequestered, all the crazy stuff. But he looked actually like the leg was feeling perfectly fine. So I wanted to have a little fun with that. So how about I give you 5 picks? Not NFL picks. These are 5 picks that just for fun. This is just for fun, folks. Let's have a little fun. So Facebook, I think, is a stock that still has plenty of room for recovery. I love the balance sheet, and this is an environment where I think they have been just taking, and they have been absolutely something. When you look at Instagram, when you look at all the different levels of what Facebook really brings and the balance sheet, this is a company that I think looks pretty poised right now to be a performer. Target, getting beat up a little bit today. Why? Margins are going to be a little bit lower. Why is that? Well, because Brian Cornell and the great folks over here at Target, not too many miles just down the street over here at Target, made the decision that they wanted to pay the employees a little bit more. They wanted to do everything the right way. They wanted to make sure that their shops are clean for people. And they just finished, or in the process of finishing, this unbelievable transformation of all these stores. They are on a roll. And when you talk about what they're doing in terms of e-commerce business and that type of thing, explosive numbers. I think a lot of people are focusing right now on the margins because people don't need to go walking into Target right now to buy a shirt. That's where margins are. They're not buying where the margins really are. They're in the grocery aisles and they're in those type of areas. So the margins will be a little bit hurt. But I think this is going to have a lasting effect. And I think Target at these levels looks like a pretty interesting play here, given the fact of where this is pricing versus the earnings. Disney is in the streaming world finally, right? And that is something that their numbers, they are way ahead of schedule. On the other side of things, they can't really produce a whole lot right now. They can't have people in the parks right now. There's a lot of different things that are pressuring Disney. There's no doubt about it. That's why the stock is trading where it is. But maybe that's a stock that's been pushed down pretty hard, maybe for some of the wrong reasons. JP Morgan, I have to throw a financial in here. JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon. I personally do not have this right now, but when you're looking for long-term and you're looking for specific names that do make some sense, this stock around the $90 or under sort of level, that makes a pretty interesting draft pick too, right? I mean, when I'm looking at what they bring to the table, what JP Morgan really is as a company, you look at that balance sheet, and we talk about this all the time. Yes, they've had to move things around because of loan potential losses that all the banks are going to be facing, but still, they are so much better, more capitalized than they were back in the day of the financial crisis. So I got one last one. So in the top few 5 or 10 picks, there's always some straggler that somebody just said, wow, that's an unbelievable pick. I didn't think somebody'd go there. So I'm just going to have a little bit of fun with this one. Ring Central, video conferencing. This is a cloud type company as well, open platform. Everybody talks about Zoom. So what about Ring? Ring's close to its 52-week highs. It's crazy how well this has recovered, but there are certain names in the markets that have really performed based on a lot of the different reasons. Take a look at Netflix, take a look at Zoom, take a look at some of these various names that are in the market that have outperformed on the recovery side of things so far anyway. So I just put together just a couple of names. Want to have a little bit of fun. We got the NFL draft. Why not have our own little fun draft? It's just for fun. Matter of fact, of these names, I do own a couple of them. I own 3 of the 5 at this point in time. I own some Facebook, I own some Target, and I own some Disney. Not in JP Morgan, not in Ring. But having a little bit of fun, and hope you guys have a little bit of fun yourselves. This is Pete Najarian, Market Rebellion. Get educated. That's the way to go. Understand the derivatives markets. Giddy up.